I'm a daughter of an immigrant, and my dad used to say every napkin is 1 cent. I mean, that's the kind of budgeting he would do.
Yes.
And he knew the cost of everything. He knew, and because of it, we became very financially stable, right? As I grew up. And so I never had to worry, but I also learned the value of it. But to some degree, and I find this in a lot of people who are first generation immigrants, first generation people who grow up in the US, find that they are worried about money, even when they're financially totally fine, and it sort of holds them back from making larger expenses or thinking it's too frivolous, or the other way where they get money and they just go wild because they finally have.
They never had it.
And so there's definitely a lot of sort of thought work that goes into how you treat money.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the most exciting things in my work is just working with people on their money histories. And it's really great to do with a couple, because understanding, sometimes we just have no idea why our partners do what they do. We think that doesn't make any sense at all. It's not logical, or doesn't make sense based on my conceptualization of money. But when we can understand more about their histories, their models, their references, then it starts to make a lot more sense, and we can be much kinder with their quirks and figure out, is this a quirk that's serving you still, or is it one that's actually becoming destructive? I mean, it's similar with sex, right? We have references, we have ideas about how things should be. We have our own histories, our own traumas, our own bodies.
And no one talks about it. Same thing with finances, right?
It's the same thing.
There's a lot of judgment about finances, and I think it's more vocal, whereas judgment about sex is a little bit quieter. But I do think that, there's a lot of it. And, when we're talking about this, I'm thinking about a couple actually who is a good friend of mine, and the wife is not frugal, but like mindful about how she spends her money. She didn't grow up with any, she was like middle class, like, fine, no financial history. The husband has a financial history where he grew up poor, and he now has come into some wealth, and he's very extravagant on his expenses. And so they do have this struggle back and forth where she's like, look, this doesn't make sense. And he is like, oh, I finally come into these finances where I can enjoy my life. And I don't think either way is wrong. It's just about coming to like, hey, this is, how do we make that work together?
Right. And what creates a sense of safety? I mean, that's the thing. If our partners are extravagant, we may worry that, that we may run out.
Yeah.
We may run out of money. And so if we feel like our partner has no sense of a limit, then we can feel really stressed. Whereas if we understand that our partners will only, they want extravagant things, but they also know where the bottom line is, or, they know where the limit is, then we can feel safe. But again, that's something that can be talked about between people.
What about when the partner who is financially doing well, right? Who's maybe supporting the family, sees the other partner not just like overspending on groceries, but like really being extravagant. How does that play in to their sex lives and their relationship?
Yeah, I actually see this a lot where someone feels like, I'm working so hard to take care of us, and everything all I'm working for is going out the door, right? And like I can't ever get ahead, and it just kind of feels like someone's drowning. And being able to talk to the partner and say, look, I feel really alone in this. I feel like I need your participation in this. And when you do these things, it leaves me feeling unsafe. That's often a really great first conversation. It can be hard to have, but the partner may not understand how their choices or how their behavior is affecting the other partner. They may feel like you work hard and you do it. We have enough.
Right. Right. And that's really, I hear this a lot. And I think the challenge is men aren't taught how this often happens, and this often happens when it's a male partner and a male partner working and a female partner at home. Now this is changing,
Sure.
But I've seen it a lot where the male partner feels this way, but they were never taught how to have conversations. Like they were never taught to be open with their feelings. Societally, men are told to just suck it up and be quiet. And it's really challenging, I think, in those circumstances, because they just don't feel like they can say something because their partner will be like, oh, we're fine. And they'll just shut down and that's it.
Right. And in a lot of families, it's like your job is, or it's your responsibility to care for the family financially. No one even questions it. And so there are all these unquestioned narratives that we have, either consciously or unconsciously, and both partners might be colluding on. And so being able to talk about these things and bring these out into the open and question them can be helpful. Where did you get that idea? I mean, same with sex. I have a lot of people who will come and say, well, females, maybe in a heterosexual relationship may say to me, sex is something that a man takes from a woman. And they'll just have this notion they've always had. It's my job to protect my body, to protect my virginity, to protect my purity, to protect my family's reputation. Sex is something a man takes from me. So I have to protect that. And when someone has had that narrative, you can imagine then how that may affect your relationship. So again, we may have these narratives about money too, right? It's my partner's job. I contribute in this way. Maybe my job is to take care of the family, take care of the kids, and to be a good sexual partner and take care of them. It's their job to make sure all of our financial needs are met. Now, these roles are changing, but even if they're changing, these underlying unspoken narratives may be controlling what we do, and we may not even recognize that they're in the room. I mean, we have our ancestors in the room with us when it comes to sex. We have our ancestors in the room with us when it comes to money. And unless we're conscious of these things, they're going to continue to control us.
And they're subconscious things too, right? Let's give this example because it's not always the case, but let's say the male partner is like, well, that's your job, is to be my sexual partner. And the partner feels like, yeah, that's my job. That's what I've been told to do. And there's either one person feeling like resentful because they have to have duty sex. The other one's feeling like entitled because that's but they don't know they're even feeling it, right? Because they've always been told that. And it's challenging because I think also as the sort of dynamic has changed over the years, we're actually seeing, if you look at demographic data, younger men are becoming more conservative in their views, whereas younger women are becoming more liberal in their views.
That's right.
And so there's more disparity in that same thought process, right? Whereas the conservative view would be that you stay home, you take care of the kids, you're my sexual partner, blah, 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 blah. And that's just a normal thing. And, the liberal view is, well, I have agency. And then not to say that they don't think women have agency in these circumstances, but there's this underlying thought process, right? I don't think I think any good person thinks like, oh, it's a duty of my wife. No, I don't think they think that like consciously. I think it's just like these are subconscious things.
Right. And it's like, I'm showing my love and my care for my family in these particular ways or in these love languages. And I want to receive love back in the ways that I envision. Mm-hmm. And without breaking it down consciously, we're not aware of these narratives that really, once you say them out loud, they may not sound very good.
Right. Like as I'm saying it, I was like, oh, that doesn't sound great.
Right. And again, like when someone says, sex is something that a man takes from a woman, it's like that may not be what was consciously said. And that may not be, what they've discussed with their partner. But when that's the underlying feeling, until it's brought out into the light and we can really look at that and figure out if it really needs to be that way, it can be hard to overcome whatever challenges someone has.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at couples who keep separate bank accounts, so I've always found this interesting because when I grew up, my parents, they came to the U.S. with $1,500 in debt. Like they had no money to their name and they built their wealth together. There was never a question about having separate bank accounts, even though my mom did work. I mean, she was a registered nurse and my dad had his own business. And so they worked, but there was never a question about that. And so it was always, when I first found out that like couples keep separate bank accounts, I was like, what? I literally, it blew my mind. And I don't think that's bad or good. I just had no idea. Like I was naive to it. And so do you see a difference in the relationships between couples who keep separate spending money or bank accounts compared to those that join them?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I've ever thought about, I haven't really researched the differences between the two as much. What I would say is the people who can handle joint accounts well are ones where they have trust between them and they also know that their partner has some similar goal. As them. And yet if they feel like they have very different goals or very different ways of wanting to spend the money, then it may be helpful to have some set aside for oneself so that they know what can be allocated for their spending. It can be challenging when someone feels like they have to hide their spending from their partners. Like they come home from shopping and they hide all the shopping bags, because they don't want their partner to see. And the question is why?
Right.
And so I'm always curious about why someone feels they need to hide it. Is it that they just don't think their partner values it? Is it they think they'd be judged? Would they be made fun of? What are these things? And so I think it's really being able to talk about these things and understand what is it that makes you feel safest when it comes to money is important. So a lot of people feel like they may have seen their parents. I mean, it sounds like your parents had a really